Mark and Digger, if you're looking for YouTube and you're looking for something in the Smoky Mountains, where are you looking for it?
Faith, food, and what?
Smoky Mountain.
Smoky Mountain.
You gotta have a little all that.
That's right.
You gotta have a little.
Tell them hi, y'all.
Tell them hi.
Look at
See
them.
y'all.
Bless her heart.
Howdy out there, y'all. This is Brooks. Just wanted to give you an introduction to our video here. This past Saturday, Christy and I, along with our good friend John, took in a heritage talk put on by the National Park Service out at Cosby Campground. Mark and Digger, along with Kelly and Daniel from Moonshiners, were there to tell stories of old about their families and the history behind moonshine. And while it might not be popular for a preacher to talk about alcohol, the truth is that many of the physical cornerstones of the old church houses around this area were built on the backs of old moonshiners and the copper stills they used to help fund many of the old churches that still stand to this very day. Moonshining back in the old days wasn't seen as something bad, but rather a way to help the rugged mountain family to survive, and my own family played their role in that history. So I tend not to shy away from it, but rather embrace our heritage and craft and aim to keep it alive for future generations. A wise man once said, if you never know where you came from, you'll never know who you are. As a man of God, I don't condone drunkenness, and Mark and Digger speak to that. Moonshine has also been used as medicine to treat many things that ailed my people. It was used for gatherings and family reunions, everything in moderation. These are the ways of the old mountain folk, including my own papa. The Scotch-Irish that settled here in the Smokies brought whiskey making with them from across the pond, and it's played an integral role in Appalachian and Smoky Mountain folklore. But don't just take my word for it. I'm going to turn it over to Mark and Digger from here and let them tell you stories from days of old right here in the Smokies. We hope you enjoy.
My Bible teacher in high school. And you know, sadly, there ain't any Bible classes in high school anymore.
You can't even have prayer in the school.
You can't, and just so people wonder why all this terrible crap happens, you cannot keep the devil out of any war that will not let the Lord in.
Amen. Don't get no finer than that.
And Sally Jane has had a college education because of moonshine, and her mama did too. So
Well, Dr. Glenn Schultz, Cathead put him through medical school. Oh, now he made liquor in his younger years, but after he slowed down, he just sold copper and jars and sugar out of an automobile parts store. That's where you won't go get your jars. But I mean, it was money and it worked out, and it got us one of the best doctors the state of Tennessee's ever seen. Can't argue with logic. But you know, now Katie mentioned about the churches, and I like to tell this story, and I'm not going to use the guy's name. He's a preacher in the county, and it might be kin to some of these folks here at the local. But I ran into him at the courthouse after me and Mark started this show, and all the pictures and the old historical artifacts came out, and he jumped all in my business about me doing that show. And I said, well, preacher, the Bible don't speak ill of taking a drink. I said, it tells you drink your wine with a joyful heart. And he went into his little sermon about it, and I said, look here, you get your Bible out, you find in there where it says I cannot take a drink, and I'll give you every quarter I've made on this show so far. I said,
Both of them?
Yeah, all $3 of it. So he hadn't been back, so I'm sure that he has. And I also told him before he left, I said, preacher, I said, you need to remember, I said, Bible also tells you it's not what goes in your body, it's what comes out. And I said, I'm pretty sure the good Lord's talking about being judgmental like you're being right now. And I thought his damn head was going to blow off his shoulders. It turned red and it was shaking, but I got my point across.
Well, I got a story that I'm going to try to tell. This is a story. Now, it's going to, honestly and truly, it'll probably take me 10 or 15 minutes because I may be slow to recollect some of it. And I don't know. You just got 10 or 15 minutes to put up with my foolishness? If you don't, if you decide you had all you can stand and want to get up and leave, I promise I will not be offended. But this story, this is the story of the Flutown moonshine doctor. This story was told to my dad, D.C. Ramsey, by his grandmother, Oda Parks, my great-grandmother. And he told me this story, and like I said, I'm going to try to remember it the best I can. No, now my daddy also told me, he said, boy, he said, don't never lie. I said, you can't remember a lie. And he told me this. He said, as bad as you'd like to forget it, sometimes you cannot forget the truth, and that's true. You guys want me to tell that story? You guys want all you Okay. No, you ain't heard this story, Digger. I ain't gonna make this one up as I go. This is not a Digger story. This is a Moshi Parks, and my great-grandmother's name was Oda, but we called her Moshi, and that was because my Uncle Barney, when he was little bitty, and Digger and Kelly did know my Uncle Barney very well, just lost him in March at the age of 87. But anyway, he called her Moshi, so she told this story to my dad. Around late 1800s, early 1900s, there was a little community in Cobb County. It was on the south side of the French Broad River, from where we know where the falls are, up to what was Big Creek back then, but it was later renamed to Del Rio. Yep. So, and I think Del Rio, does that not mean by the river? Yeah. Okay, whatever, I something like that. But anyway, long story short, Flutown was the name of this little community. Had a lot of good, outstanding citizens in it, mostly poor, hardworking, had very little. And honestly, like everybody else, every other little town, every other little community, they had their celebrated town drunk. That his name was Jughead. So that's an appropriate name. Anyway, doctors, licensed doctors, and legal medicines and really medical medicine were very scarce. And the main ingredient for treating sicknesses, especially upper respiratory and digestive problems, was moonshine liquor. And a lot of the residents in Flutown became sick. They didn't have any moonshine to make their medicine with. So they knew that one of their residents, a guy by the name of Jim Shine Brewer, they knew he was made a lot of good moonshine back in the day, but he had quit. Now, I'm just assuming that middle name was just something that was stuck on him from his moonshine making days. I don't think his mommy named him Jim Shine Brewer, when he was born. Don't know, but anyway, maybe, Kelly, I don't know. But anyway, the people of Flutown, they decided to approach Mr. Brewer and see if he would make them some moonshine so that they could make their medicine. So he told them that he quit making moonshine a long time ago. And they said, if you'll do it, we will buy all your stuff. We will help you. We'll furnish the ingredients. If you'll just make it, we want it for medicinal reasons, not just for drinking. So he said, I've quit, but I will talk to my preacher and I'll get back to you. So obviously his preacher told him that if he was making it for them to make their medicine with, he didn't have any problem with that. He didn't think he would be doing any wrong. So people of Flutown, they got some money together. They bought him enough copper to make a 1-barrel pot. All the connections, worm. Now, a 1-barrel pot is a 50-gallon, hold 50 gallons of mash. And that will make somewhere between 6 and 8 gallons of 105 proof liquor, depending on whether it's sweet mash or sour mash. So they set the still up in Mr. Brewer's woodshed. He made them their moonshine. He took no money whatsoever. And if anyone gave him, I forgot to tell you, I'm recollecting it as I go. The school teacher at Flutown was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Jess Huff, and he lived on the north side of the French Broad River, and he would take a boat every morning across the river to teach school in Flutown. If the river was up, he had to walk 5 miles via Big Creek, aka Del Rio, to get to Flutown School. So, where am I at now? All right, they bought all the stuff. They bought the ingredients. They built his still. and he made their moonshine for their medicine. He took no money for it. He gave it to them free of charge because they furnished everything and they helped him. And occasionally, out of his kindness, Mr. Brewer would give Jughead just enough moonshine to settle his shakes, keep him from having the DTs. So, Jughead being him, he got it in his bright mind he wanted to buy some moonshine from Mr. Brewer. And he refused to sell it to him. He said, I don't sell moonshine. So, this made Jughead mad, and he ratted him out to the law. So, to Mr. Brewer's surprise, within the next couple of days, 2 deputies showed up, went straight to the woodshed. They confiscated Mr. Brewer's steel. And even though it was not in operation at the time, he was charged, and a court date got set. So, here they go. Day of the court, all the people in Flutown, when they heard about what had happened to Mr. Brewer, they said, we are going to court with him. That's what people did. It was called loyalty, dedication to each other. So on the day of the court, they showed up, everybody in Flutown was there, and they appointed Moushy, my great-grandmother, to be their spokesperson. So on this particular day, the judge was extremely sick, and he was going to postpone court. I don't know what was wrong with the judge, but he was sick, and he was going to postpone court. And he asked Mr. Brewer if he had any representation. He said, I only have myself to represent me and these people from Flutown. So at this time, Moushy, she stood up and asked if she could speak. And he told her, he said, I'm going to postpone court, but I will briefly hear you. And she told him, she said, look, he's not selling moonshine. He's making it for us so we can make our medicine. We talked him into it. We bought all the stuff. We furnished the ingredients. We've helped him. So if he's guilty, if he's found guilty, we are guilty as well, so we all have to be arrested. Well, judge postponed court. Said court's postponed for a week. All right. That afternoon, Moushy went home, made up a quart of her moonshine medicine, had it sent to the judge's house with instructions to put it in his mailbox and tell him how to use it. And that's what happened. So fast forward now a week, everybody's back in court. All the Flutown people are back. Judge declares court open, and he says, I do not know who put the medicine in my mailbox, but I want to thank you very much. I'm extremely grateful. It worked wonders. So we started court. Well, about that time, Jughead came in. Oh, and the judge, when he got through saying that, how much it worked wonders, this is very important, I think. He raised his hand to everybody and said, lessons learned. So about that time, Jughead walked in and he asked to address the court. So he said, court's in session here, sir. He said, I know, I'm the reason it's in session. I'm the low-down sorry SOB that ratted Mr. Brewer out. He was kind enough to give me a little moonshine when I needed it, when I had the shakes, and I repaid him because he would not sell me moonshine by ratting him out to the law. He's here because he wouldn't sell moonshine. So Jughead, before he sat down, he looked at the judge and raised his hand, and he said, lessons learned. So there you go. All right, went on. Yeah, Mr. The judge knew at this point that Mr. Brewer was not making illegal moonshine to sell, that it was medicine. And he dismissed the case, threw it out, and he asked Mr. Brewer if he had anything to say. Mr. Brewer said, yes, sir, Your Honor. He said, first, I want to thank you for dismissing the charges. And he said, I'm probably going to rethink the fact that maybe you can't be nice to a drunk. And Mr. Brewer then looked and lessons learned. So, that being said, people went back to Flutown. The judge requested that the two deputies meet him in chambers. And the next day, Mr. Brewer went to his woodshed, and lo and behold, there was his moonshine still back, with a note that was piece of paper on top of it, said, "Mr. Brewer, we have returned your medical supplies and your medical equipment. We're sorry for any inconvenience or embarrassment we've caused you." And in parentheses at the bottom of the note, lessons learned. So just so you know, there's a lot of morals to this story here. You know, what looks like wrestling to some may be dancing to others. You know, I don't know. But my great-grandmother, Moshi, her recipe for moonshine medicine was 1 quart of moonshine, 1 cup of honey, the juice from 2 squeezed lemons, and a handful of rock candy. She recommends you use local honey because it contains local allergens that helps build and strengthen your immunity system. She died peacefully in her own home with all her loved ones with her. And she took a little drink of her medicine every couple of days. And you know what? She was 105 years old when she died. Lessons learned.
Yeah. You're talking to another ranger?
Damn, I'm sorry.
I was gonna ask you, do you know where your last name comes from?
You know where Scotch Irish?
I don't know what I...
You were talking about ramps.
Brown.
Ramsey.
The Ramsey name comes from a place in Ireland or a place in Scotland where they brought ramps. They called them ramps. And when we came over, it became ramps.
They brought ramps with them.
Yeah, that's how they're here.
Well, that's even better than
How
liquor.
about that? How about that?
So when you started talking about pickled ramps, I'm like, yeah. I wonder if he knows the history.
Minister myself.
Good. We don't need a little church enough.
But you know what? Here's the truth about it. Here's what the minister's going to tell you today. There's a lot of churches, especially in this area, built on the backs of moonshine.
The cornerstone was laid with liquor money.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was, and that's the truth.
But you know, they wasn't bad people, they wasn't criminals, they just didn't have no way to live. They done what they had to do. It wasn't no job.
No, so you know,
Nobody had no more than their neighbor.
you had to make a living. You had to make a living.
Everybody had a bushel of dry corn, they'd starve to death. They could turn it into a jar of liquor, they could swap it for something.
Did you ever know any of the Ombies over in Gatlinburg?
Ombies.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know some Ombies. I don't know where they're from.
I see my mama came out of the park up in Cherokee Orchard.
Okay. All right.
And they moved her over into town. And so, you know.
Well, they just moved these from here to just right outside.
Right outside, yeah. So I got a funny joke to tell you. So minister's driving down the road and he's got him a little something in the seat beside of him.
Oh goodness.
Just a water bottle. Officer pulls him over and he says, "Sir," he says, "you understand that you're swerving quite a bit tonight?" He says, "I ain't had nothing but water, officer." He says, I don't know about all that. He says, "Let me check you." He says, "Sir, you know we've got an open container on here in Tennessee." He said, "I told you it ain't nothing but water." He smelled it and he said, "Sir, there's alcohol in here." He said, "Praise the Lord, he did it again."
My daddy was in law enforcement his whole life. Well, not his whole life, but a lot of it. Said he stopped a fellow one time, said he's drunker than a bull owl. Yeah, didn't hit nothing or cause no trouble. And but he said, "Mister," he said, "don't you know that liquor and gasoline don't mix?" Said that old fellow looked at him and said, "Who in the hell's drinking gasoline?"